Good afternoon and welcome to our coffee chat. Today's coffee chat will be on the updates to the approved documents F, L and O, and it will be presented to you by Steve Wild, our technical consultant. There will be an option for you to ask questions at the end, so if you've got any as you go along, just pop them into the questions area and we'll come to those towards the end of this session. So for now, sit back and enjoy, and I will hand you over to Steve, who'll start the presentation for you.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, so as Sam said, we will go through approved documents F, L and O and the recent amendments, and Part O, in fact, being a new document. Particular focus on ADL and also where CPG can help in providing product solutions for compliance. The drivers behind the amendments are inevitably around climate change and the need to increase energy efficiency with the ultimate goal of achieving net zero by 2050. The importance of this focus is obvious when considering the impact of 40% of the UK energy usage resulting from the heating and power supply to buildings. A more short-term target is to decarbonise the grid by 2025. Given the short timescale, this might be one of the harder tasks to achieve. Ultimately, however, we will all benefit from the efficiency resulting in lower energy bills, comfort from lack of drafts, cleaner indoor air and prevention of overheating, which the new regulations will produce. The consultation was completed over 12 months ago and addressed the above issues and included the need for the new ADO. The timescale is geared to the 2050 target for net zero. In order to control these measures, the future homes standard for domestic dwellings and future buildings standard relating to non-domestic buildings, existing dwellings and overheating in new residential will be implemented by 2025. The interim approved documents seek to avoid having to retrofit any new homes built during this period to comply with 2050 requirements and to ensure industry is ready to meet the new standards by 2025 and be zero carbon ready. The new ADL requires new homes to produce 31% lower carbon emissions from the 22 implementation compared to 2013 requirements. Ultimately, domestic dwellings are expected to produce 75 to 80% lower carbon emissions compared to the 2013 regulations. Although new gas boilers are currently still permitted under Part L 2021, all new wet heating systems such as central heating, radiators and underfloor heating must be designed ready for heat pump systems with a lower flow temperature of 55 degrees centigrade. The timescales for heat pump rollout is currently uncertain due to lack of trained installers and particularly the cost of the equipment. There's also the potential for legislation requiring phasing out and replacement of current HFCs used in these pumps much earlier than originally planned. These measures also seek to reduce the performance gap between the as calculated and as built, which has up to now led to significant inefficiencies in performance, typically caused by product substitutions and/or inadequate workmanship. Looking ahead then, the implementation of the future home standard and the future building standard will be by 2025. The new metric for measuring performance under the FHS will be the annual energy consumption in kilowatt hours per square metre per year, with a target of 39 for flats and mid-terraces and 46 for semi-detached and end of terrace. There'll be a concentration on a fabric first approach, not a new concept by any means, but the relevance of this cannot be overstated. We will see the end of use of gas and oil heating for new dwellings from 2025, or more likely later, as mentioned above, as the grid is decarbonised. Triple glazing will probably be more favoured, however, it will be interesting to see how the glazing market approaches this, as to date, the take-up has been modest, reflecting concerns over additional costs and, ironically, the carbon footprint of 50% more glass. There should be less reliance on bolt-on technologies and the use of inappropriate trade-offs. The design should be appropriate from the start rather than having to consider optional technology at a later date. Let's look at the approved documents as implemented in June this year. Although all are based on the Building Regulations 2010, they're named as 2021 editions. The new regulations came into effect where notices or plans were submitted after the 15th of June this year. Where plans were submitted before this date, work must commence by the 15th of June next year, with tighter rules on what constitutes commencement. Part F covers ventilation and Part L conservation of fuel and power. Both are split into two volumes, Volume 1 for dwellings and Volume 2 for buildings other than dwellings. Part F and L cover the requirements for new buildings as well as extensions and renovation work on existing buildings, with some exceptions such as historic or traditional buildings and others. Part F becomes more relevant in terms of ensuring that sufficient ventilation is provided in order to balance the lower air permeability targets in ADL. New approved document Part O covers overheating and only applies to new residential buildings. This has become more important with climate change leading to higher temperatures, problems associated with more energy efficient glazing, and indeed frequently higher proportions of glass to floor area in new buildings. All of these interact with other relevant approved documents which must also be considered, such as fire ADB, moisture ADC, noise ADE, fluid appliances ADJ, and fixed building services, which is ADK and M. The main contractor or developer will need to provide user guides for the building owner, which are clear and non-technical, covering operation and maintenance of relevant equipment fitted to the building. Photographic evidence of the construction for key elements and detailing, such as thermal bridging, interfaces, etc., will be required, which are timestamped with a geographical location. Products which will subsequently be covered within the fabric of the building will need to be photographed immediately following installation. The issue of a Building Regulations England Part L, or BREL, compliance report will be necessary for every individual building to confirm both the design and as-built performance. The as-built compliance report is signed off by the developer. The photographic evidence in BREL report is used by energy assessors to produce energy performance certification, known as EPCs. The BREL report is submitted to the building owner and building control department. So the main focus of this presentation is on ADL, conservation of fuel and power. ADL is issued in 2 volumes, as we heard, volume 1 for dwellings, volume 2 for buildings other than dwellings. New buildings must be deemed to be nearly zero energy. Minimum energy performance requirements for new dwellings are calculated based on the target CO2 emission rate, which is TER, in kilos of CO2 per annum. These are influenced by the fabric of the building and the fuel used for heating. Target fabric energy efficiency rate, the TFEER, in kilowatt hours per square meter per annum, influenced by the fabric only. And then target primary energy rates, TPER, in kilowatt hours per square meter per annum, influenced by the fabric and fuel. Calculations are carried out using the standard assessment procedure known as SAP for dwellings, or simplified building energy modelling, which is SBEM, for non-dwellings. The actual rates must not exceed the target rates based on calculations at the design and as-built stages. The building must be built to a minimum standard of total energy performance evaluated by comparing the actual dwelling against the theoretical notional dwelling for the same size and shape. All individual dwellings are now tested for airtightness at 50 pascals and the introduction of a new pulse test at 4 pascals. There are no additional benefits in the SAP calculations for airtightness levels below 3 cubic meters per hour meter squared. This is to balance with the ADF ventilation. Airtightness below this will lead to a requirement for MVHR. Calculations must be undertaken before work starts using design values and confirmed using as-built information, including details of any specification changes and the measured airtightness values. Designers can achieve the target primary energy rates, the TPER, and target emission rates, TER, in a number of ways. From fabric energy efficiency, the fabric first approach, efficient building services, controllable and well commissioned to limit the consumption of fuel, low and zero carbon technologies such as solar, wind, water, geothermal and biomass. The target fabric energy efficiency rate, the TFEER, can only be achieved through the performance of the building fabric, i.e. fabric first approach. Other requirements exist to limit heat gains and losses, such as insulating pipes, ducts, vessels for space heating and cooling, and hot water services. Also from heat loss through the fabric, including airtightness and thermal performance of junctions, penetrations, and interfaces. The building fabric, including windows and doors, should be constructed so that thermal bridging is limited and detailed drawings and photographic evidence provided for all junctions. The thermal integrity of the insulated plane and interfaces should be maintained. The thermal performance of junctions should be calculated by a suitably competent person, and it will not be feasible to use default Y values. The calculation of specific psi and Y values will be necessary to meet the TFEE. In improving airtightness, the aim is to reduce unwanted heat loss through air infiltration, for example, via cracks, joints, and penetrations. When installing windows and doors, these should be well fitted and reasonably draft-proof. The tolerance around a window or door unit and the surrounding openings should be minimal, and an insulation material of low thermal conductivity used to fill the gap. DS 8213-4 is a code of practice, which includes guidance on this. As stated in ADL, to ensure continuity of the air barrier, window and door units should connect to the primary air barrier and should be taped to surrounding structural openings using air sealing tape. Compressible seals or gun sealant may be used to supplement taping. Vapor control layers should be overlapped and be taped at junctions and edges, for example, continuity of the main AVCL and the window interface. Drawings should detail the position, continuity, and extent of air barriers. On a plan of a building, it should be possible to draw a continuous line around the building envelope to define the airtight line. Incoming services, penetrations, duct and cables to be minimized or sealed with an airtight tape or sealant. And there's been a reduction in air permeability limiting values from 10 to 8 cubic meters per hour meter squared, which is still relatively easy to achieve. But in reality, it's more likely that the notional value of 5 cubic meters will be applicable, resulting in the need to use tapes and membranes. This table shows limiting values in the previous ADL and the revised version. The U values for windows and doors have reduced from 2 to 1.6. The reduction in air permeability is also shown from 10 to 8, as we've just heard. The notional building figures are indicated here, where we see the lower air permeability, even lower at 5 cubic meters, and the U values for windows gone down further to 1.2, with indicative FHS requirement of 0.8. Clearly, these are significant reductions. Now we can look at which CPG products are appropriate where the requirements of the new ADL have to be met. The Ilbruck, Dryvit and Nadura brands provide wide-ranging solutions for compliance. But before we focus on product, it's worth noting that CPG offer a wide range of support services, starting from the design stage with U-value calculations and marking up a detailed drawing showing the appropriate location of products. And we can also offer condensation risk analysis via WUFI modelling. When on site, toolbox talks are arranged to ensure full training in the application of products, and site visit reports are written and circulated to relevant parties. We can calculate product-specific psi values to be used in SAP calculations and avoid using lower performance default values. Third-party air and weather tightness testing, including CPG products, is regularly carried out, and we can advise appropriate preparation and correct installation to avoid issues. We also have similar facilities in-house, allowing bespoke applications or R&D to be supported. The Dryvit maintenance guide for EWIS is an example of the documentation which supplements the technical data sheets and website information. And now we can look at some of the Ilbruck product solutions. From the facade itself, where breather membranes and vapor control membranes are required, to the interfaces at windows and doors, the continuity of the required seals are ensured by the use of Ilbruck products. The i3 system provides a 3-in-1 perimeter seal, including weather and air tightness and insulation. The use of well-proven products like impregnated tapes and foams enhances the thermal properties of window joints and prevents thermal bridging. Further products are in development, including Class A2 and B breather and AVCL membranes. ME508 is an example of the type of product which is now recommended in ADL and ideal for sealing the internal perimeter of windows and doors. Application is easy using the self-adhesive backing and split liners. ME508 provides air tightness well below the required levels and is easy to apply and has also BBA accreditation. Here we see some applications of ME508 in conjunction with other products such as ME003 vapor barrier and ME317 internal membrane tape. Where compliance with ADB fire safety is applicable, ME480 provides a solution for the internal airtight seal, which is also Class B and complies with the reaction to fire requirements. This membrane is fully self-adhesive with a butyl backing and has an aluminium foil finish, which provides a water, air and vapor tight seal. Air tightness around window and door perimeters can also be achieved in combination with weather tightness and thermal insulation in one application using TP654 Trio. This is a variation on the Ilbrook i3 system concept. TP654 provides driving rain resistance up to 1050 pascals, combined with a high level of air tightness and insulation, both thermal and acoustic. It's possible to seal gaps from 6 to 25 millimeters with just 2 sizes. For a full AVCL application and in compliance with ADB, ME060 has the required performance, being class A2 S1D0, with an extremely high vapor resistance and very low air permeability. ME322 is an air and vapor tight tape for sealing window and door interfaces and linking with the AVCL to the internal wall. Driver EWIS are perfect when adopting a fabric first approach for both renovation and new build. The U values achieved meet the new ADL and the FHS. The Roxolation Pro system is ideal in meeting the need for increased insulation thicknesses, resulting in lower U values. Again, the fabric first approach is achieved by Nudura ICF systems, where the new U value for walls is met for both limiting and notional specifications. Similarly, the new air tightness requirements are achieved with less than 3 cubic meters performance, comfortably under the new notional target of 5 cubic meters. In order to meet the more challenging FHS U value requirement of 0.15, a new thicker block is in development. Now that concludes the overview of the recent changes. However, for anyone interested in a much more comprehensive CPD relating to the sealing of windows, doors and facades, including the Part L updates, you can arrange a presentation by my colleague Rob Halliwell, whose contact details are on the screen. So now we have time to answer any queries, and hopefully Sam may have some to feed through.
Lovely, thank you, Steve. So if anyone has got any questions that have not submitted already, please do put them in the box and we'll try to get around to them in this session. So the first question that we've got is from Justine. She says, is there a cost for the WUFFI calculations?
I think there is not meant to be a cost per se across the board. I think it depends on the situation. I mean, clearly, if we have a large commercial project where there's a high value to our business, and a WUFFI calculation is going to be very useful to the other parties in the supply chain, then we would probably look at that very positively. Similarly, if it was a sort of one-off house, it might be a little bit impractical not to charge. But I think I would keep an open mind on that one. We're kind of only just getting into it, so we haven't exactly got a lot of case histories to quote you on in that sense. But if you have any applications that you are interested in, please contact us and we'll advise by return.
Lovely, thanks, Steve. And we will be popping Steve's contact details on the following slide as well, so feel free to get in touch.
I'll put those up now.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll just leave it open for a couple of minutes in case there are any more questions about the approved documents or about the products that can support you. So please do feel free to pop those in the question box. Got a question from Donald. Do CPG have a vapor permeable airtight barrier, airtight membrane, which is Euro Class B rated?
Yes, we do. The product which did feature on the screen on the slides was in fact ME480. So it can be used outside, but its main use, as we believe, is for internal vapor control membrane. So yes, that's ideal for putting around the window perimeter on the inside. Will provide the air tightness and is Class B. It's BS1B0. So fully in compliance with approved document B.
Lovely, thank you. Steve's dropped a question in. Says, great informative overview, Steve, clearly aimed at England. How are you handling the Scottish market?
The Scottish market, as you're probably aware in asking the question, does differ to a degree. In all honesty, we haven't looked at that in great detail. It's probably true to say that most of our business is in England, and of course that's where most of the sort of volume comes in terms of business. But we will be looking at the Scottish regulations, and if there's anything that we need to either change our thinking on or products, we will clearly look at that. But we haven't had any issues at this point, and certainly I would be interested if you have any specifics relating to the Scottish regulations which you would want to put forward to us, and we could see whether we have any issues in addressing those, or we, as I say, we're perfectly flexible in terms of developing other products or modifying or whatever. But yeah, very interested if you have any specifics that we could look at.
Lovely, thank you. So Steve, the question asker, if you do have any, please feel free to drop them over to Steve Wild, contact details on the screen.
Indeed, yeah, I'll be very happy to look at that, yeah.
Perfect. Are there any other questions from anyone before we finish this webinar? Just while we wait to see if anything comes through, we will be circulating a short summary as well as a recording of this coffee chat should you wish to catch up after the webinar. So you will have those sent out to you. Will these regulation changes be implemented in Wales? And that comes from Scott.
I believe that they will generally be so, but as you're probably aware, with differences between the English and Welsh political situation, there could be slight variations. I think it's probably a little bit like Scotland, where there could be the odd difference in application or in figures that are used. Again, we will take an active interest in making sure that we're covering the whole of the UK, and where there are any variations, we will come back with a response and clarity indeed. So again, if you have anything specific, concerns, or just a query, if you wanted to drop me an email, I'll give you a very specific answer.
Lovely, thank you. And we've not got any more questions that have dropped in. So if you do think of anything, over the coming days or whatever it might be, then please do feel free to get in contact with Steve. Like I said, we will be circulating a short summary of today's coffee chat, as well as a copy of the recording. So Steve's details will also be on there. And if you would like to book on to the CPD for more detail with our colleague Rob Halliwell, his details will also be on that email. So that concludes today's coffee chat. Thank you very much for joining us, and a big thank you to Steve for providing the content and delivering this today. So yeah, have a lovely day, and we will end the webinar there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'd just like to endorse what Sam said. Thanks for your time and listening, and the questions that come through, and very much welcome any further questions if you think of anything in the next day or so. Thanks again.
Lovely. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.